In this video, we're going to do a couple problems where we take point slope form and we're going to switch it to become standard form. All right, so in this first one, it says y minus 2 equals 1/2 times x plus 8. Now, when I write something in standard form, I like to use what I like to call my standard form checklist, where I can't have fractions, my x and y term have to be on the same side, as well as the x term has to end up positive. All right, so in this problem, what you might want to do first is distribute this 1/2 in. And that's going to give me y minus 2 equals 1/2 x, and then half of 8 is 4. All right, now if you have a problem that you're doing where this fraction doesn't, distribute in as nicely, I'll show you what that looks like maybe in our next problem. So just kind of stick around for that. Anyway, if you have one like this here, let's maybe first off move this 2 over to the other side. And when I do that, that gives me y equals 1/2 x plus 6. Okay, now from here, this is now kind of written in slope-intercept form. I can take and start to apply these different rules from my checklist. The first one is I can't have fractions. When we want to try to get rid of fractions, we need to multiply the entire thing by the denominator of whatever that fraction is. So here it's a 2. So I'm going to distribute, and when I do that in this one, I have to distribute to all the different terms, giving me 2y equals, and then the reason I chose 2 here for this denominator is what I'm really doing is multiplying by 2 and dividing by 2 in the fraction. So I'm just going to be left with what's on top, in this case 1. We might say 1x. 2 times 6 then is 12. And then I can go ahead and check off the no fractions box because we don't have fractions anymore. The second box is I need to get the x and y terms on the same side. So currently my x term's over here with a number. Let's maybe move that with the y on the other side by subtracting 1x. That's going to give me negative 1x plus 2y equals 12. And you'll notice I wrote this in alphabetical order. The x comes first and then the y. All right, traditionally that's kind of the way you do it. The x first and then the y. All right, then the last step, so let me check that one off. Last step then, I need to get my x term to be positive. Currently, this is a negative 1x. And to kind of switch all of our signs here, I can actually multiply by negative 1. It's okay to do this because we're doing it to both sides of the equal sign, so we're not changing it. We're just changing something on both sides. And so if I distribute this in, this is going to give me positive 1x. You might just say positive x, if your teacher likes that better. Negative 2y. And negative 1 times 12 is going to be a negative 12. So this now, since all my boxes are checked, that is in standard form. So we went from point slope to standard form. Let's try one more. All right, for this next problem, I went ahead and reset my checklist so we can start over with that. And I also promised you that I would do one where it kind of has a tricky one where you need to distribute. So as you're doing these problems, you might want to look ahead a little bit to see, does this fraction distribute nicely into that quantity or not? This is one where it doesn't, right? It's taking a 1/5 of negative 2. That's not going to turn out very nice. So if you have one like this, you might want to start getting rid of your fractions right away. And just like before, we're going to take the entire equation times the denominator of our fraction. But you have to be a little bit careful with this one. So I'm going to distribute, but when I distribute to the other side of the equal sign, this is all one term. So you can only distribute that 5 once right there. And I'll show you what that looks like. 5 times y is going to be 5y. 5 times 3 is 15. But then 5 times 1/5. Again, the reason I chose 5 is because that's the denominator here. I'm multiplying by 5 and dividing by 5. So those will cancel, leaving me with just this number on top. And that's all I'm going to change on this side. So I'm going to say 1 times, because it's currently being multiplied, the x minus 2. And it's still that same quantity. All right, this 5 does not get applied to the x or the negative 2 on the inside, only to the number out front. All right, so be careful with that. Now you can go ahead and distribute in, since we don't have any fractions left, and get 5y plus 15 equals just x minus 2. 1 times anything is itself. Okay, let's maybe move this 15 to the other side. I'm going to move it with this negative 2 over here. When I do that, that gives me 5y equals x minus 17. Okay, and then if you look at my checklist, the next thing I need is that the x term and y term have to be on the same side. We're going to subtract x in this case, giving me negative x plus 5y equals negative 17. So now the x and y are on the same side. The last part of my checklist is the x term has to be positive. Again, like my last one, I'm going to multiply the entire thing by negative 1. So you could distribute that, or a little shortcut, when you multiply by a negative 1, all the signs are just going to switch. This was a negative x, now it's a positive x. This was a positive 5y, now it's a negative 5y. It's going to equal, this was a negative 17, it's going to equal a positive 17. So if you can go through maybe and quickly change all those, that might be faster than trying to distribute in your head. Okay, this is the standard form now of my original problem. And so we have completed all parts of our checklist. And that's how you move point slope into standard form.